Here's an example, good example for me. Palestine. You've got Israel in possession of the land, and you've got the Palestinian authorities, right? And you've got Arabs who constantly are unhappy with this, and it's understandable. However, my view is, had they submitted to the rule of the Jews, then their personal circumstances will be far better than they've been over the many decades since Israel was established and then launched its wars. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But one can see how constantly fighting, does not necessarily do you any good. It doesn't. But you know what though? Even if as a Muslim you say, look, this is our land, the Jews have usurped it, so we are justified in being unhappy, you can still say they're justified in being unhappy. I'm not entering into that debate. I'm saying, from a Catholic perspective, you at least think about whether, even though your reasons for being unhappy are just, whether you should nonetheless fight. Fighting doesn't follow just because you've got injustice done against you.
Let's talk about the Byzantine Empire and the fall of the Byzantine Empire.
Okay, yeah.
In the 15th century, the Muslims came as a unit and effectively took over Turkey and the Byzantine Empire regions. So they removed the leaders, they wiped out the people who were in control, and they installed themselves as the leaders.
Yeah.
The Christians who were then subjugated for 700 years or 600 years to this very day, should they have ever tried to retake the position, so retake the sovereignty, or should they have just accepted their status? They just accepted their status, right? They just accepted that.
They accepted it. They were recruited into the Ottoman armies.
They didn't fight back. They couldn't do it. I'm saying, would you say that was a good choice?
In hindsight, it was, because a lot of those countries are now Christian. Greece, Bulgaria.
Just because they were able to effectively break away.
Yeah, when the time was right.
Yeah. So I'm asking this.
No, it's all right. It's good. It's good.
So they were subjugated.
Yeah.
So through the military battle, they lost sovereignty. The king was taken. Everything was gone. The Muslim leaders are now in control. The Christians in that region have been subjugated for 600 years. What should they have done? Should they have tried to rise up and fight, or should they just have accepted the second-class status as?
All right. Yeah. I think once Constantinople itself fell in 1453, then that was the end of any right to resist the sovereign.
Okay.
Pain in the neck, to say the least, though he and his successors, Muhammad II and his successors, were. When Anatolia was conquered by the Muslims, there was still there's a major part of the empire. So one could justify at that moment resistance. And the Battle of Manzikert in 1071, I think, where the Byzantine army sought to retake Anatolia, or sought to defeat the Muslims, which would have resulted in the ability to retake Anatolia. When that army was defeated, in a practical sense, Anatolia would not be retakeable. So we can see that over time, the Christians in different parts of the empire would have to accept submission, even though the central authority in Byzantium was still in existence for some time.
But they didn't have actual authority. I mean, the Christian central authority.
Well, obviously, Byzantium at the end was just effectively no more than a city-state, a vassal of the Sultan. But there's a sense in which you can say there's an emperor, and therefore you can say you owe allegiance to your emperor while he's still there with authority. Because you've got a lot of grey areas in all this. When must a Christian say, look, the game's up, we must submit to our effective sovereign, who is now a Muslim sultan? Now, I'm not saying that I've got a clear explanation of when you was in different parts of the empire which had just been conquered by Muslims, while Byzantium and various territories still in existence. I can't say when you can say I can still resist or I can no longer resist, but the general principle is all I can say. And it's and when the situation is fluid, the borders can go back and forward, of course, over centuries. You know, we see the Emperor Alexis Comnenus II, I think. He asked the Pope, and in Clermont in 1095, Pope Urban II. Thank you. Yeah, he then answers the request. You stay here because he answers the request of the emperor for troops, and so they go, and that's fine because the emperor is an authority, and as Islam is pressing forward, it's justified for troops from Europe to go while there's a legitimate imperial authority. Anyhow, when the empire had gone, the emperor had been killed, then that was all over.
Okay, but you believe that if a Christian nation is being invaded, they have the right to defend themselves and try and retain their sovereignty in the situation where someone's trying to take over their land. You're saying that's fine.
Yes.
But if they lose,
yes,
they have to submit to the war. But that's what you're saying.
If there's no prospect of a successful fight back. So when I mentioned the French resistance, they had a prospect of a successful fight back while Britain remained free, and then when the United States came into the war. But if Britain had fallen before the USA came into the war and could send troops, then the French resistance would have no justification to fight German occupation. And so it goes on. Say, for example, when the Mongolian Empire invaded Eastern Europe and conquered swathes of Eastern Europe, one could say at certain points there was no more a position of the Christians to fight, but the Mongolians tended to come, stay and go with loot. So the Hungarians could eventually justify, fighting them because they weren't in possession in an absolute sense. And of course, the Hungarians would ask for troops from the West because Western Europe was still a free set of Christian kingdoms. And so you could justify resistance to the Mongolians. So you look at the kind of the picture on a regional level, not just the individual, kind of national level. It's only when all hope is lost you definitely stop resisting.